What's up, world? This is gonna be a part two to another video I just made about necessarily being alone not being a bad thing, but the further, I guess, extend that is basically pretty much reinforcing what I said in the last video about necessarily being okay with just being solo, I guess. Because if you're in a relationship or whether that be boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the case may be, you don't have to be necessarily one of just a physical relationship, or could just be a friend, could be like family, doesn't matter who the fuck it is. If they're not necessarily adding to your life and pretty much subtracting, and I mean from like all levels, mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever the case may be, probably should cut that person loose, even if they are related to you. Yeah, because I know me, I don't fuck with a lot of family members for certain reasons, because I just don't fuck with them. But that's another video. And because I can say me personally, as a person who's been pretty much single for a very, very, very long time and doesn't actually mind it, because on the journey of necessarily being solo, I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot of things that I needed to do in order to make sure that I was a fully functional person as far as my personality, as far as going into adulthood, as far as getting my first car, getting my first place, as you can see. And basically I figured out that I had to figure out, did I like just being around me more than I like being around other people? And it turns out I actually do, because dealing with other people means dealing with other people's bullshit at the same time. And we all know, for those of us who are in maybe social circles or in always just involved in something, you always hearing about this, that, and the third with somebody else's craziness, which is no business of your own. But some people who like to talk don't mind telling their own business, which is why a lot of the business ends up in the street instead of to themselves, which is why I like to stay clear of all that jazz, excuse me, because that's just not something I'd rather indulge in. Yeah, I find it funny, of course, because I can just laugh at that person because I know it's not happening to me, it's happening to them. But because no matter what the situation is, I just know at the end of the day, I'm not involving myself in it, but somebody else is. I mean, not to say that I want to laugh at somebody's pain or anything, but at the same time, there's certain situations you can avoid if you actually just use this thing on top of your shoulders. But I think that's where a lot of people actually fail when it comes to certain situations. But getting back to the point of necessarily being on your own, or basically independent, I would say. Yeah, because like when I say like being just by yourself, I don't mean just necessarily being alone. I'm just saying necessarily just in indulging in the things that you like because you like them, and not necessarily because someone else told you to like them. It's basically being in tune with who you are from every, I guess, spectrum of being a person. or every criteria, because you're okay with you. Necessarily, you don't have to try to impress yourself because you're already satisfied with that person, and which is kind of, I guess, leaves a whole load off of you, because you're not necessarily trying to impress someone who is not you, and not necessarily trying to show a representative to that person instead of the actual person you see in the mirror every day. Because basically, when you get into a relationship, or when you try to find interest in another person outside of your own world, that's basically what you're doing, because there's no authenticity there. Because, I mean, even on the first date, you gotta even think about that. Like, when you first show up to the first date, you're not gonna tell that person you got this going on, that going on. You may have this person on the side, or you got like a bunch of kids, or you have a bunch of debt, whatever the case may be. You're gonna keep all of that to yourself until you know that person is somebody is worthy of knowing that information, and worthy of necessarily being involved in a world that you thought they were worthy enough to actually be involved in. Because as far as the dating process goes, that's how it's supposed to go, but necessarily people like to try to jump the gun, because either they're desperate for attention, or they're just desperate for someone to fill a space, I would say. Because necessarily they're trying to project what is missing from their own, I guess, nucleus of living, and trying to make somebody else take over that job instead of actually just dealing with the problem head on. Which is why I think a lot of people, honestly, are probably not going to agree with me on this, but therapy is definitely something that's been missing within certain individuals, especially when dealing with the Black community. Which is why I always say, before there can be an actual revolution, like everyone always talks about as far as like the conscious community, like the Black community is concerned, there has to be a mental revolution first. But honestly, when I say that, I think I'm just speaking to people who just hearing that going one ear, going out the other. So it's pretty much it's like talking to a wall, or just everybody's pretty much deaf to what I'm saying. But I think certain people grasp that concept. But yeah, that's just a little bit of extra I decided to add on for that topic. But until then, peace.